you get insights and you get windows into people's lives.
Yeah.
That's really fascinating, and it's a great little study. Even just for this, you're with them for half a day or a day, and it's just this kind of microcosm of what happens in that world, whatever world they exist in. And that really excites me, and I get a great deal of enjoyment out of it. And so and I think it's also because I've worked so many shitty jobs, that even a bad day doing this is a good day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm in Launceston again, here in Tassie, and I'm in the studio of Tom Chapman, director, cinematographer. Tom, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Tim. I thought you were about to say a third. It felt like there was a third one coming then, but I wondered where you were going. Thank you. Nice to have you here. It is it's a bit hot and
it is
humid
it is,
in this little space, but
well, it's a great space. It's this is your studio, your production studio.
Yeah. So this is where I do any editing or pre-production and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so hopefully, but I'm just super keen to find out about your process. So director, cinematographer, what does that mean to you?
Well, they're different hats that get worn, right? And sometimes you wear them both at the same time and sometimes not. And so cinematographer is basically you're taking a director's vision and you're trying to make it look nice, and you're trying to make it, look how they want it to look and light it how they want it to look. And trying to contribute your own creative ideas as to how shots within a scene or the movement of the camera might work or anything along those lines. Director tends to have more of a vision, a sort of macro. It's a macro vision when you sort of oversee it all, for the project and what they want to get out of it. And you'll often find directors edit as well for that reason.
Yeah.
And so it's a pretty close collaborative relationship.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you end up doing both.
Yeah.
And I do all three of those things.
And so you said depending on the project. So which is it, the scale of the project that determines the scope of the work that you do?
Yes, by and large, I'd say that's probably accurate.
Yeah.
The scale of the project, both in size and or in budget.
Yeah, right, right. Let's come back to that. I want to know where it all began for you. So how did you get into filmmaking? What inspired you to get into filmmaking?
Yeah, right. So I was about 30. I was a barista in a Melbourne cafe and in Brunswick. So that's a good 15 years ago now. And everyone that walked down the street, there was a creative spark in their eye. And I'd always wanted to do something creative, but I'd never known what it was. I still don't even know if it's filmmaking. Who knows? But I'd worked, jobs that had no interest to me for years. And they're office jobs, clerical jobs, whatever. And I started making coffees, and I realised that for the first time in my life I had a skill that someone would pay me for. And I thought, that's cool, but I'd like a skill that pays more than $20 an hour. And a skill that gives me some form of creative satisfaction. And I ended up sort of hanging out a lot at the time in Brunswick, there were a lot of artist-run warehouses where people lived and created. And in fact, a friend and I subsequently made a short documentary, and we found between Brunswick and East Brunswick 38 artist-run warehouses.
Wow.
So there's a massive creative environment there. And it was fortunate that I was there at that time and met some people that were into film had hired a room in a studio, ended up sharing it with a couple of other filmmakers, and just kind of collaborated with them on whatever projects were coming along, and slowly started doing more work, fun things, and then realised that I had to replace the income. If I didn't want to keep making coffees, I had to basically go into earning money straight away. And I think a lot of people's filmmaking trajectories, they start out, early 20s, they've done film school, they've got a lot of time and a group of friends to play and experiment. And because I came to it at 30-ish, I didn't have that. And within a couple of years of sort of starting to do video work, I had my first child, and it's like, well, I need to... So I very quickly had to go into the corporate commercial world.
Yes.
That had to be my focus.
Yeah, right, of course. Yeah. So if we were to go back further, I mean, as a kid, did you have a camera? Did you have like a digicam or something?
Funny. Yeah. So I became obsessed with school holidays. I remember Industrial Light and Magic, which is
Yep.
Yeah, you're aware of those guys.
George
that did
Lucas.
All the Star Wars stuff.
Yeah.
And there was a special effects series on TV that was all about miniatures and, just these incredible worlds you could create using analog techniques. I got really absorbed into that, and that was really cool. And then friends and I would make horror movies on VHS tape. So one of my friends had like one of those vacuum sealing machines, do you know that you preserve food with?
Yeah.
Which was great for making blood packs. So we'd make sort of, just B grade sort of horror films where you stabbed someone or you bit into a little, there'd be blood everywhere. And
too cool.
Yeah, it was good fun.
Awesome.
It was good fun. But then, then ended up at uni and sort of studied copywriting and didn't really do anything. Right. Yeah, never did anything film or visual related. Didn't think I was a visual person.
Really?
At all.
Yeah.
And I've only recently come to the conclusion that I am quite visual, and people having a discussion online with a friend, and a few others joined in, and about he's got no mental visualization, and but he's very physical and he moves a lot, very kinetic.
There's that book by Temple Grandin, Visual Thinking. Have you come across that one?
No.
Right, I'm going to lend you a copy.
Okay.
Yeah, it's there's two different types of visual thinkers, and some are artists and filmmakers, and the others are architects.
Right.
And then there's the people who can't visualize.
Yeah. Okay.
But the educational system has been for so long that actually anyone with it doesn't favour anyone with any sort of visual thinking.
No.
And so I struggled through school.
Yeah.
And went into engineering and struggled through that.
Yes.
For 50 years.
Yeah.
Here I am.
Okay.
But but it is and you suddenly realise, I'm visual, and there are lots of other people who are just the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the work you do now, you must encounter visual people all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you don't often reflect on the way you think and think it's any different than the way other people think, right? Mm. Until election results come along and you're like, how the fuck did that happen? But by and large, you just kind of think, well, everyone's brain works this way, doesn't it?
Yeah. Mm. Yeah. Or even, like, for me, it was sort of like, so people don't think like me, but I'm the one that's different.
Yeah, okay.
But I guess when you, in Melbourne, in Brunswick, and you got yourself into one of the artists' art spaces, creative spaces, suddenly you're interacting with people who think and live and are very similar to yourself.
Yeah, musicians, glass blowers,
And I suppose,
painters,
yeah.
you know,
But,
comic book artists. You
as
know.
a barista as well, you said, you know, even before that, so those sorts of people were coming into the cafe,
Yes.
and you're interacting with them, and I guess it's almost taking you into, you know, bit by bit, you've moved into this world where actually, this is where I should be.
Yes. Yes, by and large, but then also, particularly coming to it later, and coming to it having to have a bit of a capitalist mindset.
Yes.
You feel like a fraud.
Okay.
Because you feel like, hang on, I haven't learnt all of this, and I do have art projects, and I do want to do art projects, and I am involved in art projects, but I'm not in it necessarily. It's not just the art that has to drive this.
Yeah. Let's get back to the commercial. But you got to pay the mortgage, right?
Yeah, exactly. Or the rent.
The rent.
Yeah.
And you know, you said you kids.
Yeah. Exactly.
So it's necessity, it's need, and so yeah. How and you know, so many people, particularly, you know, I'm like a sponge when it comes to filmmakers and filmmaking, and so many people talk about, you know, you take on the commercial work to be able to get the so you have the finances to make the time to do the artistic work.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that how does that work for you?
Well, in a number of ways, it allows you to experiment and practice. And I mean, if you're getting hired 2, 3, 4 days a week, whatever it might be, to film stuff, you're encountering lots of different lighting conditions, you're encountering different spaces, you're encountering different skin tones, you're encountering all these variables that you get to learn how to deal with, and how to manage, and how to light, and how to work with. And I think part of that as well is that I'm a people person. I really, really enjoy connecting with people. I'm an empath, and as a result, just building up relationships both with crew that you can then work with, and with the people that you meet, the people that you get insights, and you get windows into people's lives.
Yeah,
that's really fascinating. And it's a great little study, even just for this, you know, you're with them for half a day or a day, and it's just this kind of microcosm of what happens in that world, whatever world they exist in. And that really excites me, and I get a great deal of enjoyment out of it. And so and I think it's also because I've worked so many shitty jobs, that even a bad day doing this is a good day.
Yeah. And so empath and people connection. You talked about the film between East Brunswick, 38 artist creatives, and so how I haven't seen that film. I mean, did you go in and interview each one of them, or? A friend and I. I mean, I more helped than and probably hindered at times. He knew more than I about what he was doing. But we just went round and met hundreds of artists that were in the suburb, that were in these warehouses, which was pretty cool and pretty eye-opening. Sorry, 38 spaces.
38 warehouses of people.
Yeah.
Yep. And some of those warehouses would have 20 people in, some would have half a dozen, you know.
Yes. Yeah. And now half of those spaces will be flats and
I reckon
apartments.
4/5 of them would be apartments now.
Yeah. No, I was there just last year. Cool, wow. And then so recent projects, let's get back to the commercial. So the commercial work you do, and you use the C word, capitalist.
Yeah. Yep.
But I mean, it's not capitalist with a big C. It's a need. It's necessity. It's a need to do work that pays the bills, and to be able for you to work as a. Are you a freelancer? Or
so I'm a freelancer, and I do have my own projects, and I do because I love people, I love documentaries as well.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, as you say, it's a necessity to keep food on the table. And you within it, you can be picky to a degree, you know.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to work with. There's a few industries or companies that I wouldn't work with.
Yes. Yeah, and I guess you become known for a certain style. There will be a Tom Chapman way of working, and that would influence the style, and therefore it would suit a certain client. Whether it's, I mean, is it commercial advertising, some of the work, or mostly documentary?
It's mostly documentary and style and nature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just paid work.
Yeah, it's just paid work. We're just trades people, but with different tools, you know.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you just sort of rock up with your van or ute, more likely in Tasmania, and do what you need to do.
Yes. Yeah. And it's an interesting comparison. I hadn't thought of it like that. That you've got your the tools of your trade, and you did say before about you had a skill, but you wanted to find a skill. So you've spent the last 15 years developing your trade, your skill set, and I guess you have a niche. I've seen some of your work, and it's quite beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, before we started filming, and the first time we met, you talked about your love of light and working with light. I mean, that must really influence the end product. Is how you work with light is going to be different than how I work with light.
Yep.
Yeah. Obviously, there's 15 more years of experience there,
yeah.
as is shown on this video right now. But tell us about how you work with light. What is it about light? Let's start with the concept. So what is it about light?
It's ever changing. It's like cinematography is referred to as painting with light.
Yeah.
Right, and it's if you've got control over it, then you can set up lights. You can light hard, you can light soft, you can do a mixture, you can use motivational light, which is more often the case these days, where there's a window there, so you light that way. But I love giving images depth, but then I just love chasing the natural light.
Yes.
Like all you're ever trying to do, well, no, that's not correct. I mean, you might light a space stylistically, and that's one thing, but so much of the time you're trying to replicate natural light in some way, shape or form.
Yeah.
And so when you can just kind of chase natural light, if you've got that freedom, and that's what documentary filmmaking or small crew filmmaking gives you as well, is the ability to move quickly.
Yes.
Then you can really capture, some beautiful moments that aren't repeatable.
Yeah. Yeah. So are you an early bird? Do you get up for that sunrise? No, I mean, as a photographer, that's something that I struggle to do, but definitely, because it's about 2:00 in the afternoon, 2:30 now, and this is not on a bright sunny day.
Oh, it's horrible.
Yeah, this is not a good time to shoot.
Everyone else will walk out and say, "Oh, what a beautiful day," and you go, "Oh, fuck." Give me 3 hours.
Yeah. It was nice this morning when it was overcast.
Yeah, exactly.
But because you can do more with it. You can.
We also learned that, and one thing I learned fairly early on in the piece, which really took me by surprise, and it's obvious now, is that you can do as much, if not more, taking away light than you can putting lights up, right?
This is what I'm learning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to shine a great big light in your face just now.
Yeah.
And you said, I reckon we'll be all right with the window.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll see how it turns out.
Yeah,
but
I'm to blame if it looks awful.
No, you're the expert. But it is that, I mean, that's where I'm at, is like, I want to play with it, but you've got to, it takes time and practice to understand how to work with light.
Yeah, yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's all simple principles.
Indeed, yeah. So yeah, I mean the work I've seen of yours, I think of documentaries about farmers in northwest Tassie.
Oh yeah, so that was the film I made a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just had so I don't remember the story, but I remember this beautiful golden hue and misty mornings, and it's, and when you said about motivational light being a very contemporary way, this is what people talk about when they're talking about cinematic.
Yep.
Being cinematic, right? And I think, I mean, my observation is you go onto YouTube now and everybody's trying to be cinematic, because there's that, we now have the technologies that even someone like me can put together something cinematic. And so that perhaps leads me to a question of, you know, how does that then impact you as a someone with 15 years under their belt, a good solid freelance practice with regular clients? How does the accessibility of and the desire of people to become content creators, it's
fantastic.
Yeah.
So, you know, like, what do they say? A rising tide lifts all boats.
Yeah.
So just, you know, the more people doing it, the more of an industry there is, the more of the work there is, the more that work might be. There might be different streams and different types of that work where you can find your own niche. Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, it's the democratization of filmmaking that, I mean, for years it was so expensive and so hard to get into. And the only reason I got into it is because I happened to be around when there was a camera, the 5D Mark II came out, which Canon, I'm sure people know about, but Canon basically designed it for journalists and it allowed them to record 30 seconds of video footage at a time. And cameras would cost tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, that good video cameras. And here was one that cost $5.
Yeah.
And yeah, you could only get 30 seconds at a time, but you find movies or like music videos or whatnot that there's so many shots that don't last, that you can make a video without shooting something that's more than 30 seconds at a time. So, well, it might even have been 30 minutes. I can't remember. But
I had a 70D.
Yeah.
And I started to play around with video on that because primarily using it for photography, but then started playing around, and I think it was like that one was cutting out after 10 minutes.
Yeah, okay.
So maybe it was 30 seconds to 10 minutes, like a couple of years later. But yeah, it's and now like I've got this, we've got 3 cameras on you here right now. And it's all just
all at a higher quality than that. But that really, I mean, the same question could have been asked then, and people would have had their head in their hands going, oh my God, the film industry is going to collapse because we've got a $5,000 camera. And it didn't. And what it did was it just brought filmmaking to the masses, and the sort of stories that have come out of that, and the films that have come out of that, and the access to, whatever documentaries, political upheavals. It's amazing.
Yes.
And so, I think the more content creators, the better.
Yeah,
Doesn't mean the content's better.
No.
But that's where the good and bad get filtered out, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. I suppose that's the thing is you have developed your own visual language, and that is why you will get hired rather than someone else, because they want to work with Tom, they want to work with,
I think it's not even developing your own visual language. As a cinematographer, yes, you've got a style, but by and large, you're meant to be malleable and skilled enough to reflect whatever
Yeah.
the other person. I think you get hired by not being a dick, basically. I think that's, if you're on set
Yeah.
and you're helpful and you're not a tool to work with, you're going to get more work.
Well, we're back to tradies again, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's all the same principles.
Yeah. So hiring a cinematographer is like hiring a plumber.
It's relationships. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You want to trust them with your. If I were to hire you for a documentary film that I would want to make about something, I would want to trust you with my story.
Yep.
Just the same as for a plumber to come in and fix my bathroom. I want.
You want to know that I'm skilled enough to do the job.
Yeah.
And then, which by and large should be a given, if you're operating in a professional field. And then you want to know that I'm going to be a good person to work with.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much the only two criteria.
Yeah, sure. Yes, and that would go for so many things
Yeah,
in life.
absolutely. Yeah.
So many, but often falls by the wayside in certain situations. But I do see this. You're alluding to that sort of sense of community, because I guess when you're not community, perhaps it's an older word, a different sort of word, more commercial word, network. But it's so. If there's a shoot and there's 8 of you on set, as well as the client and whomever is the subject of the film, you all want to be able to get on, because you're going to be tight on time, tight on budget. You got to get the job done. You might be losing light.
Yeah.
And so that's where it's that sense of teamwork. But very often you'll come to get together. I used to teach project management when I first started as an academic. And I used to use Hollywood movies as an example of good project management, because since film stars and production crews became freelance and moved away from the studios, it's always about, okay, let's bring people together for this project, do the project, and then we all go away again. And that's part of what the director does, I guess, is a really great project manager to be able to bring that together. How do you manage that?
So how do I manage
bringing
different people together?
Yeah, and making sure that your vision or the client's vision, or your artistic vision. I do want to get to your artwork as well, but I think it's just just really interested in how you would.
Oh, I think by and large, I've got a group of people around me that I can trust and who I already enjoy working with.
Yeah.
But also the film industry and in Tasmania is so small, and everyone's really supportive. And in fact, this industry is really supportive. It is small, but it comes down to that thing of don't be a dick. You'll get found out.
Yeah.
And if you're unpleasant to work for, or you're unpleasant to work with, you're not going to get hired.
No.
And there's just no point. There's no point being that way.
Yeah.
And the great thing is that you can ring up or you could email someone who is an incredibly successful, or someone whose work you really respect, and you say, hey, how did you get that shot? And 9 times out of 10 they'll tell you.
Yeah.
Because it's a great industry like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so there's not, I don't know, this is only my experience, but I haven't found too many people that I dislike working with.
Right.
Or that I wouldn't want to work within on my set, really.
Yeah. It's really interesting. Is it? I alluded to time pressures and budget pressures. Is it a very pressured?
Can be. Yep.
Profession, and therefore the easier you are to get on with and work with, And also you said directly that, you know, you have trusted people that you work with. So you always call up the same people first and try to bring that team back together again for each project. So that helps to, because the more you work with someone, the more you can start to second guess what they're going to do.
Yeah. Well, I think you've touched on two different things there.
Yeah.
The pressure. So I did work with a director for a while in Melbourne on a few projects who was also a volunteer firefighter, and he was reasonably high up in the ranks as a volunteer firefighter.
Yeah.
And he'd always be like, we're not saving lives.
Yeah.
Like, what's it matter?
Yeah.
You know, like, you do your best, you do a good job. This is where you're going to wish you had lights, by the way.
I know. I just got it. Yeah. So yeah, we're gonna keep rolling.
Yeah, but the bottom line is you're not saving lives, and I mean, do the best you can, but at the end of the day, if you don't get the exact shot that you want to get,
No.
like, editing is a creative process. Not saying you should fix it in post, but editing is a creative process as well.
Yes.
And so they work within the restraints that they get. And it's up to them to work through that also. And then when it comes to the sort of crew that you work with, yes, you have people that you call fairly regularly. But the great thing about this industry is because it's freelance and there's other stuff going on, you can't necessarily work with all the same people all the time.
No.
And so you bring others in. And I've really enjoyed, since being in Tasmania, mentoring.
Yeah. Okay.
And I've really, really enjoyed that.
Awesome.
So yeah, I'm always on the hunt for people. I've basically just been pillaging Camera House. Anyone that works at Camera House and just roping them in to work with me.
I'm the eternal apprentice, so
Yeah.
you know, you've got my number.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. No, I'd love to be on set and see how you work and just muck in. You know, I think. I mean, yeah. As you say, you know, and you're not saving lives, but you're also. It's fun, as you said. A bad day on a film shoot is a lot better than a average day in something else.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's fun, and I think the main thing is yes, if you're under pressure, and if you find yourself the more senior sort of person on set, then yeah, it can be pressured, and it is on you. But you also have to have that in the back of your mind, a bit of perspective.
Yeah.
But like, you know, if the cornflakes don't fall into the bowl perfectly after 97 goes,
yeah,
who gives a shit?
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
Like,
yeah.
And the other thing is, if you've got a good crew around you, all they need to do is show initiative. If you've got people around you that are showing initiative in pressured situations and helping out, then everyone's doing the best they can.
Yes.
And that's all you can really do.
God, yeah. Awesome. Yeah, no, it's a great lesson for life in general, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's benefits to having come to this game later in life and having a whole lot of other experiences before it.
One thing that strikes me, Tom, is I'm guessing your age based on what you've told me, but you seem quite youthful, and you just referred to someone else who I wouldn't have thought would have had enough lifespan to have a previous career. But there's something that's really, I don't know. As I say, I'm a real student of filmmaking and filmmakers, and there's a youthfulness to, and then perhaps that comes from the joy of and the the fact that you have to be pretty easygoing.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I don't know. I'll take that as a compliment. Absolutely.
Please do.
I've always been very interested in pop culture. I've always kind of, I still really like that energy of people in their 20s and Yeah, I remember my father saying it's a young person's world, and in many respects it is. But I think it doesn't necessarily have to be, and you can still remain connected to that world.
Yeah.
And take some of that energy and enjoy some of that energy as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the other thing I think to remember is before the advent of digital cameras in particular, most directors' first films were in their 40s.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't get someone making a feature film in their 20s.
No.
Because you had to have experience, like they were such expensive exercises. You had to have experience. You had to have not only experience on set, but worldly experience, I think, as well.
Yeah, I mean, the Steven Spielbergs and the George Lucases of the world were exceptional. But again, you know, they would have been in that Hollywood network.
Yeah,
I mean, like
yep.
Lucas went to, I think, Caltech or one of those LA universities. You know, his professors would have been part of that. So
you're much more a student of film than I am.
I've just spent.
I think I went 10 years barely watching a film,
Really?
to be honest. Yeah.
Really? Yeah, no, I've just been, I've just spent the Christmas holidays just basically watching movies every night.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, so let's get back to you rather than Tim, because this is just, I could talk for another hour, keep asking you about your practice and filmmaking more generally, but yourself as a filmmaker, artist, I mean, what do you do that's non-commercial that fulfills you?
So I do documentary work, and it's if it's working with, I mean, even in the commercial space, documentary work, and I say commercial in terms of someone hiring me to shoot their project.
Yeah.
That's incredibly rewarding. I love it. You know, I guess I've sort of been chatting with a company about filming a documentary down in the southwest about the skate in Macquarie Harbour. And I'm so excited about the possibility of that. Because effectively, you don't necessarily, like, it's not under your control. It's not really under their control, other than the fact they've teed up people to talk to, or, you know, places to be at a particular time. And it's just such a reactionary, in the moment thing that you're going to spend 3 or 4 days filming stuff, and you've just got no choice but to be really, really present, and present to see the light, present to hear what people are saying, present to capture, you know, if there's wildlife moving or what have you. So that's really rewarding. It doesn't matter whether that's your own project or whether someone's paying you for that. That's really, and I think that's maybe something that I find rewarding across the board, actually, is you have to be really present.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you do to get in the zone?
You stare at a little 7-inch monitor for about 10 hours.
The skate are coming. Get your wetsuits on.
No, it's collaboration with people. You know, it's that thing where at the end of a project, you just want it to be greater than the sum of its parts. And if everyone is there, everyone's on the same page, everyone's trying to achieve the same thing, and they're giving their energy, you can't help but be present. You can't help but be a part of it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the great feelings of, I mean, I'm just so lucky to be able to do that for a job, let alone, I'm so lucky to be able to experience that on a semi-frequent basis, let alone do it for a job. So, I don't know if I can't remember what your question was.
Well, it is. It was really, I started with, let's get to your arts practice, and you started talking about potential for this documentary. But as an artist, you're making documentary films. Obviously, those films need a budget. So, that's where you can really, I suppose, really stretch your artistic vision. Is that right?
So I think in many respects, you're an artist regardless of whether you're being paid for it or not, right? So there's still creative satisfaction about making, an ad, a scene in an ad look good. There's creative satisfaction in achieving that. As far as an arts practice goes, I think it's just you get to be a bit looser. Like I love making music videos because you get to experiment, you get to play around, and documentaries are not necessarily as playful, but you get to put yourself in weird and wonderful situations and be led by something other than yourself as well. And then short films or films are about getting an idea out. A narrative film is about getting ideas that are in your head out onto the screen, which is satisfying as well. So I think that there's so many avenues in this career that are satisfying depending on the hat that you're wearing and what you're doing.
You take my mind back to the notion of the tradesperson, and you bring it. No matter where the funding comes from, no matter what the artistic vision is, you're bringing a set of skills to the job.
Yep.
And that's what makes it Tom's.
Well, I think yes, and I think perhaps a better analogy, or maybe building on the tradesperson as an analogy, is a craftsman. So you don't have to go out and reinvent the wheel and become some master artist. I think you can take pride in doing a job really well and using the skills that you have and doing it really well. And so I think being a craftsman is probably a nice description. If you were to apply it to carpentry and you make a really beautiful table that someone buys, or you make a really beautiful table or a chair for yourself or as a gift or something like that, you get creative satisfaction out of all of that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think it's kind of similar to that, I think.
Yeah. You open up the question of, is filmmaking art or craft, or we don't need to answer that here and now, but it sows a seed for me. There's another book, by the way, Richard Sennett's The Craftsman.
Okay.
Terrific book.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
what's that?
It's he's a academic, wrote it probably 15 years ago, something like that. But yeah, it basically unpacks what is craft.
Yep.
Who are craftspeople, and you talked about mentoring before, and there's a great chapter in that book about the violin maker from hundreds of years ago, who the finest violins, Stravinsky? No.
Oh yeah, it is Stravinsky.
So apparently, he couldn't. He had a workshop full of apprentices, but couldn't pass on his knowledge. And one of the great things about a craftsman. So my father was a craftsman, and he taught in the training school at the factory where we both worked, and so he passed on his knowledge to hundreds of young people. So when I came in a few years later as an apprentice myself, there were hundreds of people who knew me through him, and that was an incredible thing. So you've just talked about mentoring as, you don't just sit at your desk and pre-production, post-production, go on set, come back again. You are bringing people up with you.
I try to. Admittedly, that's, when it's sort of pre-production or post-production, a lot of that is more done in a silo. But on set, I love training people and mentoring people. Although I don't know if I train, I more just suggest to people. I mean, I'm not very good at bossing people around, so I more sort of suggest to people what they do, and then I guess in the knowledge that we're not saving lives, Tim, I just see if they sink or swim, and consequently what happens from there, really.
The best teachers show, they don't tell.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
It sounds like you're doing a pretty good job.
Well, thank you. I don't know, but I do I have found a few people that I do really enjoy working with here.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, I'm quite new to the community here in Tasmania, filmmaking community, but like just recent months. But again, just this warm embrace that I see and feel, not see, but it's it just there's something special happening here, and I really want to get under the skin of that.
Yeah, yep. It's great. It's beautiful. It's really beautiful. You just got to be supportive of people, and they're supportive of you. And it's such a small industry, and we've all got to work to build it up.
Yeah, too true.
And there's no like the sort of mentality that we're competing for jobs or something is so. It's just so wrong, because it's like, there's work out there. There's lots of work out there, and there's lots of stories to tell, and there's lots of things to do, and it'll all come.
Yeah. It's a great note to end on. But before we end, how can people reach you?
So they can reach me on my website of tomchapman.com.au.
Yeah.
Is probably the best way to do that.
Yeah. Obviously.
I don't know. I feel like I've just talked about the state of the industry. I don't know.
Is there anything else you'd love to talk about?
I don't know. I don't know, Tim.
You got to give the people what they want, Tom.
What do they want? You know that better than I do.
Exactly, and that's why I asked the questions I did. I've got a question for you then. In your future, your near future or far future, do you ever envisage making a horror movie again?
I envisage. I would love to. So, while I do a lot of commercial work, I would love to do less, because I'd love to be able to do more creative and more experimental and more artistic work.
Yeah.
It feels like I've had to be in corporate and commercial world for a very long time, for the reasons I said, of kids and family and whatnot, that I've kind of missed out on those experimental filmmaking artistic years, and I kind of feel like I'm slowly getting to the point where hopefully over the next 10 years I can do that, which I'm really looking forward to. And in a way, I've been waiting to have that breathing space to be able to do that, so I'm really excited about that. Making a horror movie would be great. I won't say they're not like my first love or anything like that.
No.
But I think sometimes you can watch a film. I can't remember what we were watching the other night. I rewatched Starship Troopers.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember that film?
I do. Yeah.
And it's mid-90s. It's basically, the whole thing is a satire on fascism and America moving toward fascism, or at least I read it as such, and communism. And basically the Americans go into space. They go to a planet full of, giant insects and spiders called bugs, and they,
I think I've seen
they try to overtake and take them over and shoot them all and kill them all and whatnot. We were watching that film, and it's just like, that would have been a really fun film to work on. Like, I think you can see when you watch films and you go, that would have been a fun one.
This has been absolutely fantastic, and I would love to keep talking to you. I'm sure we will after we switch the cameras off. But
cool.
This has been a great episode. Thank you.
Also, thank you. Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me along.